This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here in the Colorado studio today. It's a beautiful summer time here in Colorado. And we've been doing a little bit of traveling, and we've recorded and captured a bunch of shows with entrepreneurs all across the country as we've been traveling in the mobile studio for the last handful of weeks. So you're going to want to stay tuned and catch all those shows coming down either while you're listening here on the radio, or if you listen to us on the podcast, you want to make sure you subscribe to catch up and keep up with all of the entrepreneurs that we're interviewing. Some great stories from entrepreneurs all across the United States doing really interesting work and new kinds of innovations and job creation and trying to take that dream or that idea that they've got rattling around their head and making it real. Now, as I've talked many times on this show, we talk about the fact that career is a journey. Right? It's not an end destination. You have a variety of experiences over the life of your career. And I've also shared, at least my belief, that the best leaders out there are those that are what I call T-shaped careers. And what I mean by T-shaped is those that have had a variety of experiences that collect expertise, collect experiences across different companies and different industries, and they collect connections. People who they have found over their career that they stay connected with and follow and use those as sometimes in case of sounding boards for new ideas and new areas of expertise. And today's guest is one that I think exemplifies this. Phil Merrick is a serial entrepreneur, founded a number of companies, sold a number of companies, and has done that over a wide range of areas. And in some cases, he was the first person into some things that today we just take for granted. So, Phil, thanks for joining us here on Killer Innovations.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Phil.
So, Philip, take a few minutes and introduce yourself to the audience here.
Sure, happy to. And thank you for having me on. So I started out as a software developer and kicked around a bunch of startups, both in my native Australia and then here in the US. But always had this desire to start a company and take some ideas and bring them to market and just try to pursue that great American dream that had brought me to this country in the first place. Been very blessed, and things have worked out better than I could have imagined when I first came to the country. But the first entrepreneurial venture I was involved with started a company with my wife, who's a marketer. So software developer, marketer, turned out to be a very, very good marriage, both personally and professionally. We started a company called webMethod and pioneered what today we might call, or what we do call, web services. We pioneered the use of that for integrating software applications and databases, both within an enterprise, within the four walls, although that term four walls really doesn't mean much anymore, and also between enterprises, and really developed ideas like using web APIs and so forth. There were other companies and other individuals doing this at the time. It did turn out when it came to doing patent filings and so forth that we did have precedence, so we did get there slightly before, but there are other people working on this independently, I should point out. Very fortunate with that first company, even though we had a near-death experience, which I think is obligatory as a startup founder. Got down to $36 in the bank account, lots of personal and company debt, and no idea how to make payroll 1 month. We went from that to having a company that ran at about $200 million, $225 million a year. When when I left, and took it public on the Nasdaq. So that was a great ride, albeit with lots of ups and downs. More recently, I am now the CEO of Fugue, which is a cloud security company focused on keeping our customers' cloud infrastructure safe by making sure that it stays in continuous compliance with their enterprise security policies. So cloud security has been much in the news the last couple of weeks. A certain bank had a couple of issues that we heard about.
A nearby neighbor of you.
Yes, very close here in Northern Virginia. So we make it our policy to not point out victims in these things too much. But what we do is we deal with an issue that's fairly rampant in companies' usage of the cloud, something called cloud misconfiguration. Everything is software defined in the cloud. That applies to all the infrastructure, the compute, the network, the storage, and the security policies. And so you need automation to make sure that you get that right, and that's what we do. So that's a really exciting ride in and of itself. In between times, I've been an investor, board member, advisor, involved in a number of entrepreneurial ventures, as you said. Co-founded a web multimedia resume company called Visual CV, which I think was probably this again was with my wife and another friend of ours. But this is what you would call a critical success, got a bunch of awards rather than a box office success. But the ultimate buyer of that business really turned it into something, and it now has about 3 million members. So it's been a really varied but tremendously fun entrepreneurial career I've had, and I'm happy to still be going.
So let's back up to webMethods. I mean, one of the things, you and I met back when you were at webMethods, and I was one of the 5 founders at Telligent, which was also based in Northern Virginia. So we're talking, late 1990s, early 2000, kind of the heyday of, the dot-com growth era. I was in the CLEC space. Everything was up and to the right. But in the case of webMethods, you've had the experience, though, of, being the first ones out of the gate doing a new thing. You talked about the patents, and the fact that you got precedence on the patents. And it's always interesting when I've looked back in history about, the real, the innovators that start something new, that kind of establishes a new industry, establishes new capabilities. While everybody likes to be the first one out of the gate, if you look at the big success wins, like, Google did not invent search. Apple did not invent the smartphone. They're all like, even the big guys out there today are second or third players in. So talk a little bit about the experience. You were the first one out in the case of webMethods, right? Exciting, but painful, I would guess.
Very much so. Definitely exciting, and at various times also painful. So we had this idea that you could use the new open protocols of the web, particularly HTTP, and then things like XML that came along a little bit later, and use those to solve some fundamental problems in distributed computing. Basically, how do you get applications to talk to one another across networks? And so we were talking about using web technology for connecting machines together at a time when, and the web was very young at that point, just a few years old, basically. People were very focused on pretty static websites, putting information in front of human users in front of browsers, and that was the web. And so the idea that the technology that was serving up those pages in the browser could also serve up information to other computers in server-to-server communication, so that they could exchange information. That was was considered pretty out there. And as we pitched to venture capitalists, I think I pitched to about 120 different venture capitalists before my friend Gene Rickers here in Northern Virginia actually said yes. And then ultimately Mayfield out on the West Coast. But as we pitched, people didn't get it. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're using the web and web technology in some fashion, but where's the web browser in this? I don't get it. And why would you want to use this? Why would you want to use this technology to connect machines together in this way?
Hey, and Philip, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to pick up this conversation with Phillip Merrick, and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Welcome back to Killer Innovations with our guest, Phillip Merrick. Now, Phil, when we went to commercial break, we were talking about the fact that at webMethods, you were out there doing it first. And the challenges, as you were describing as we took the break, about the fact that people just didn't get it. They were asking, where the heck is the browser? Well, how hard is it, when you really think about being that first person trying to do something different, than in getting people kind of over that skepticism hump?
Well, ultimately, we took the approach that you really had to get people to try the technology and see that what we were offering was an easier way than the technologies that they had been accustomed to. And to the extent that you did have technologies and they were available to connect applications together, they were pretty big and complicated and fairly ugly in a couple of cases. And certainly you couldn't pound out an integration between, say, a CRM system and an ERP financial planning system very quickly. So we showed people that this was in fact something that was a lot easier using our approach and using these web technologies and the things that we now call web services. One of the big breaks that we got was we would put out press releases talking about different ways that you could potentially use our technology. And we did talk specifically about how you might use webMethods to integrate with your SAP ERP financial planning system. And there was a big move to adopting SAP at the time, so this was pretty big. This caught the attention of SAP, and they asked us to come into their labs and prove for them that we could actually do what we said we did. We proved that over the course of a good few months as they put us through our paces. And then SAP chose to do a really quite fabulous go-to-market deal with us, which really put the company on the map. So it was really a case of getting out there and proving it, literally one customer at a time. We also had a break when DHL, the shipping company, called us up, and I think we were about 4 people at the time, and said, we'd love to take your technology and incorporate it into our worldwide shipping app, which goes out to our customer base of about 35,000 people. Is that something you could support us with? And we were 4 people in a basement in Northern Virginia. So the temptation was to say, oh, sure, not a problem. But we came clean. We told them exactly where we were, and they said, well, we work with young startups all the time, so long as we can put your source code in escrow in the event that you go under, maybe we can start working together. And actually that got me working with Alan Bain, who was the head of that unit at DHL at that time. You might also know Alan. And Alan has also had a terrific career and is currently driving innovation. Recently, he was at Coca-Cola and was Chief Innovation Officer there, and now he's the CTO at Procter & Gamble.
Yeah, it's interesting given the early stage work, right? As far as finding those companies that kind of get it and that are willing to work with the early stage companies in order to bring that to success. As we say in the innovation game, the difference between a good idea and a great idea is rarely the idea. It's about getting the timing right, right? Both the upsides and the relative downsides. And so, what lessons did you take from the web methods, right, in those early days? And you kind of weave through. Now today, web methods is, where's all that technology at? Is it still at Software AG or?
It is still at Software AG, and my understanding it's a pretty large chunk of what is now $1 billion software business for them.
Yeah, I knew you guys. I knew it got rolled into Software AG along its history, but now you're at your current company. How do you pronounce that again? Is it Fugue?
It's Fugue, as in the type of music that Mr. Bach wrote a lot of.
Ah, okay. So, what lessons were you able to take from web methods? Back that early success you had to what you're trying to do now, because in the case of cloud security, there's a lot of other players that are in that game, right? That or at least claim to be in that game. So you're kind of in a different position rather than being the first guys in, correct?
Yes and no. Certainly, there have been a number of cloud security companies that have been created over the past 10 years as cloud adoption has rolled along. But we are pioneers in something that we call self-healing infrastructure. The idea of resilient cloud infrastructure that can basically regenerate itself. And the powerful thing about that from a security standpoint is we can use that to work from the idea of known good baselines, establish a known good baseline configuration, and then when change is detected against that, we can not only, of course, set the alarm bells ringing and send alerts to everybody, but and create tickets and all that good stuff, but we can actually, without anybody having to write any code, we can revert the cloud infrastructure back to that no good configuration. So if somebody, for instance, opens up security groups, the equivalent of firewalls in the cloud, and inadvertently leaves the door open, we can find that pretty quickly and put it back automatically without having to go to somebody through a ticketing system who then has to manually fix that, which might take hours or days versus the minutes that you really want when you've got a vulnerability like that. And that actually was something pretty similar to what happened with Capital One. They had a firewall misconfiguration. So the idea of being able to do that with baselines and codeless automated remediation, that actually is a first for our company. So we're first to market with a new technology in an existing space. So unlike web methods, we're not having to pioneer the space, thank goodness, because I think I lost a lot of hair over that. Certainly what I still have is gray as a result.
So Phil, real quick, in some cases, when we come back from this commercial break, I want you to think about this one question, because I hear a lot from entrepreneurs that say, they've got to be the first one out there. They're going to be the very first one to be with even in a new industry segment. If you're number two, then you're not an innovator. I don't agree with that, by the way. And I think, your experience both of you're doing something new in an area in a problem space that's already well understood versus having to come in and educate everybody from the ground up as to why security is even important, much less cloud security. So when we come back from the commercial break, let's pick up our conversation on that specifically. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversations with Phillip Merrick. You're not going to want to go anywhere. Also, stay tuned. We've got some interesting information coming out at the end of the show. So stay right there. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with Phillip Merrick. Now, Phil, at the commercial break, we were talking about specifically about this, what I hear from entrepreneurs all the time, or innovators who want to be entrepreneurs, that they've got to be the one to define an entirely new area. If they're not defining something completely new. Now, you did that in webMethods, as you were saying, hair loss. I lost mine on Telligent, being the first ones out in the fixed wireless space. And then now at Fugue, the security's known, cloud security is known, but you're the first one to solve it in the way that you solved it, right? Mm-hmm. So what would your answer be to the entrepreneurs that say, no, I got to go create that new space completely from the ground up?
Well, if you're able to be fortunate, very lucky to have the opportunity to help create a space and it works out, that's great. But I think webMethods was very much the exception. And as you pointed out before the break, you look at companies like Google, certainly not the first search engine, and there are many, many others. For me, I think the takeaway from that is, and the takeaway from my overall entrepreneurial experience is that innovation's not just about the idea. It's the idea for sure, and that's important, but it's also how you actually bring that to market, how you package it up as a product or a service, and then how do you build the team behind that gets it out there in the market, that sells it, supports it. In other words, the execution piece. So it's idea, it's product development, and then it's execution, and there's innovation involved in all of those things. You might have innovation in your business model. You might have innovation in how you recruit, in how you construct your teams, how your teams work together. And actually, in the latter part of my career, I've been really more focused on those pieces I just mentioned. The team building, how you get teams working effectively together. So it's not just the idea, and ideas. It's kind of like what they say about war and battle plans. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Well, no idea comes away from contact with a customer in the same shape, and that's really important because let's face it, virtually every idea that an entrepreneur comes up with is initially totally half-baked. and it's not until you work to package things up in a product and get customer input on that really early that you actually start to understand what the idea needs to be shaped as in terms of the actual implementation of how a customer solves a problem with it. And I think that's where a lot of the tricky parts are. It's in that refinement of the product that you only get from getting customer feedback. I think one of the things looking back that contributed to our success at webMethods was it was only about 4 or 5 months of time in product development from the initial okay, let's get started for real moment to when we actually got something into customer hands. We gave it away free on the web, and that got people using it, and we could then take that feedback and start to iterate, and that is, I think, where you really start to do the heavy lifting of innovation. Like, okay, how are people actually using this? What are the sharp edges that are causing injury on the part of the customer? Hopefully not actual injury. And then how do we plane off those sharp edges? How do we make it much easier for the customer to get value out of it? Those kinds of things. That's for me the majority of what innovation is about.
Yeah, and this is always a question I always love to hear other innovators think about, right? I mean, you've had a long, very successful career. You've taken companies public. You've been involved in a variety of different industries, whether it's, web APIs, cloud security, etc. At this stage in your career, if you were to look back and ask yourself, you were able to give yourself advice. So you've kind of gone through this entire learning curve, and you could go back to the start of your career. What would be some of that advice, lessons learned, you wish you had that perspective at the very beginning?
The one thing I wish I'd really known earlier in my career is that within reason, you can actually do almost anything you put your mind to. It was something my father, a lot of parents say this to their kids, it was something my father drilled into me. You can do anything you put your mind to within reason. I mean, I was never going to be a sports star. Just wasn't coordinated enough. But certainly, I think in terms of any intellectual pursuits or any entrepreneurial pursuits, you can do anything. I was deathly afraid of public speaking for many, many years, and I think that held me back. I was afraid of failure in a company. Even though I wanted to start a company as soon as I came out of university, and actually started to go down the path of doing so, I backed off because I was too worried. It's like, well, how am I going to feed myself if I fail? How am I going to deal with failure? And I wished that I had known maybe about 10 years sooner that you really can do anything that you put your mind to. Once I was actually in a company and started a company, and I really thank my wife for giving me the courage to go forward and start a company, which we did together initially. But I wish I'd known sooner that once you're in a company and really you have no choice but to do everything that comes your way. There aren't a lot of limits on what human beings can do, and so I wish I'd known that sooner.
And was it webMethods and the success you had there to prove to yourself that you could do that? What was it that kind of broke through? What was the breakthrough on that observation?
Well, the breakthrough was going from being deathly afraid of things like public speaking to actually being on the other side of doing a speaking slot or a conference or something like that, and having people say, hey, that was really good. I really appreciated what you said. That gave me confidence. Then I remember going into our IPO roadshow at webMethods, where it's just 3 weeks back-to-back solid of presentations and really tough Q&A, and along with my teammates, CFO and COO, who did that with me, we were just absolutely deathly afraid of letting a lot of people down and doing badly, and we came out of that, and by some measures, it was the most successful software IPO to date, and so. So I think once you get in there, you do it. You start to get some confidence that you really can do pretty much anything you put your mind to.
So Philip, I just want to thank you for taking the time of joining us here today at Killer Innovations, and let's stay in touch. I know we have a lot of common friends, albeit I'm no longer living in Northern Virginia, and but it's been great to kind of be on the sidelines and watching your career and your success. And I wish you the best. And let's stay in touch. I'd love to keep in the loop, and particularly as we see more and more of the security issues coming up, I think your new company has a very bright opportunity in front of it. So again, thanks for joining us here on Killer Innovations today.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure, and definitely plan to stay in touch, Phil. Thank you.
Great. So as we wrap up, we're going to go into the last segment of the show. You're not going to want to go anywhere. We will be back on the road in the mobile studio here soon. So if you've got an entrepreneur, an innovator that you think has an interesting story, drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. so that I can see if it's somewhere along the planned trip. We will be going to New York, then down to along the coast of Florida, circling all the way back around to ultimately to Las Vegas, and then back to Colorado. So if you've got an entrepreneur and innovator doing interesting work, just let us know. We'd love to pull up with the studio, catch their story, help share that, help people share with what they're working on, what they're passionate about, and it's something that could be shared with the audience. So again, let me know, Phil@killerinnovations.com. We're going to go take this quick commercial break, and when we come back, we will be into segment 4, and you're not going to want to miss it. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal, team, or organization's innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners just like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Killer Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. It's designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself, your business,